2.
You're watching the U.S. American-Made Guitars Show, brought to you by UsePedals.com and Wilgard Productions. Visit WilgardProductions.com for all your audio production needs. Without further delay, here's your host from Chester, Montana, USA, Gary Housley.
Oh, no, I'm here, Ron. This is Gary with USAmericanMadeGuitars.com. No, that was a little intro at the beginning. I should have told you, but I was in such a rush to get going. The little intro had to play, and then, so, yeah, no kidding. At the end there, you're probably wondering, where did he go?
Yeah, you were counting down. I lost you for a second. I'm like, uh-oh.
Well, for everybody that's tuning in here, let me see if anybody's over in the chat room here real quick. I'll say hi first. Hi, everybody. I know somebody's going to join. They promised me, and they keep their promises. All right. Anyway, I've got Ron Williams from. He's the owner of RONZWORLD Guitars. Is that what you call it?
Yes, that's it. Yep.
Right. And RONZWORLD Guitars. I have been a big fan of his, following him on Twitter for quite a while, and been after him. He's really busy, having fun. And that's what I love about RONZWORLD. It's fun to check his guitars out, his photographs and his tweets. So I encourage you to go check out RONZWORLD on Twitter. You can open up another window or whatever while you're listening to or watching this interview, and check out his guitars and say hi to him. Follow him, and if you want to do that, it's RONZWORLD, RONZWORLD. And on Facebook, it's RONZWORLD. So you have to do ITSRONZWORLD. So anyway, friend him on Facebook as well. I'm sure you'll enjoy that. It's really fun to follow him in all of his social media. Ron, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. I've got some really cool stuff lined up for our guest today to check out about RONZWORLD. And like I said, I've been following you for a while, so I'm really excited to have you on the show. Thank you.
A pleasure to be here.
How's the weather up there? Where are you at exactly?
I'm about an hour north of New York City at a town called Fishkill. It's in Dutchess County, New York, and it's beautiful tonight. It's probably in the low 70s, clear skies, gorgeous night.
I don't know what it is about New York lately. You're the second person from New York that I've interviewed. I just interviewed Dave Nesdahl.
Okay.
And or David Nesdahl, as he's also known. And he's from New York as well. I interviewed him this week. And what is it they're putting in the water there that makes all these guys so freaking cool with guitars, man? I mean,
I wish there were more of us. It's I'm actually close to Woodstock. So I mean, you get a lot of luthiers, quote unquote, up here, which is kind of cool. But I don't find too many of the the metal guys, up this neck of the woods. I got to go a little further south for that. But yeah, we got some pretty cool guys doing some pretty cool stuff up here. I'm enjoying it.
Man, how long have you been doing this, man? Because you're an excellent artist. I mean, your style and talent is top notch, man. I mean, we're going to talk about some people that are recognizing that. There's some companies out here in America that are recognizing your work and having you do some things. We'll talk a little bit about that. But how about this? What in the world got you going with RONZWORLD?
RONZWORLD. Well, I'm an illustrator by trade. All right. I went to college for art, and I got out of school and I went into advertising. So basically, up until about a year and a half ago, my entire career has been working at advertising agencies on some pretty big brands, and I had a good time doing it. I was a creative director. And then one day I sat there and I said, you know what, it's time to find a new canvas. And there was the guitar sitting in the corner of the room, so I tore it apart and started painting it. And through a lot of trial and error, it's not something that obviously out of the box you easily grasp. Especially the finishing part of it. But slowly but surely, I started doing them, and I went to the NAMM show just about a little over a year ago, Summer NAMM in Nashville, and I hooked up with a couple guys there, met some cool brands and some pretty good guys. It's a great place to network, and it just took off. I've been extremely, knock on wood, lucky with it. Whereas I've met a lot of cool people. A lot of the brands, like you said, are behind it now. I do a lot of work at festivals. I'm quote unquote the official guitar of a lot of these festivals that we do. And I just fell into it, man. To be honest with you, and I left the advertising industry, and I do this full time now. So I'm very pleased with it.
Well, it's very pleasing to look at your work. You know, I mean, it's obvious that you put the time and energy into to get to the level that you are at as an artist. I mean, the illustrator experience that you have really comes through, and I think that's part of what makes your work special compared to other artists.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, I obviously I have a style. I'm not the only guy to paint guitars. I mean, I admire a lot of other painters out there. I mean, you see a lot of guys who who do like motorcycles and stuff like that, and I've seen them transition to guitars, and they do awesome stuff. So I mean that's kind of cool too, and they have a style, that it's just not my style. I'd love to be able to do it. Quite frankly, I can't. So I kind of brought my little bit of advertising-ness, if that's even a word. Make up words as we go here. Into my guitar painting, and it's working where there's a design aesthetic that goes along with it, as well as just simple art. So I think I've kind of cheated a little bit, being able to bring that world into it. And, a lot of what I do, like I said, if you've been following me on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, you'll see a lot of the stuff, is kind of branded for a lot of these festivals. So what I'll do is I'll come in and, they'll call me and say, hey, would you be interested in painting guitars for, the Aftershock Festival, which is coming up in September in California. And, here's our logo, make something cool with it. So they give me a lot of freedom to do it. All the designs you see are mine. Obviously I do have client input, to an extent, but, I'd like to say if you're really that specific about how you want it to look, maybe paint it yourself. You know what I mean? Because I've got a look and I've got a style that if you're going to call me to do it, that's what you're going to get. So it's been working out well. But again, I think a lot of it has to do with a little bit of that advertising and design aesthetic that I bring to the table with it.
I totally agree with that. Right now I've got a picture up of 3 guitars, and it looks like it's they're for Country Jam. Looks like a radio station, or what is that? Country Jam's radio station?
Yeah, basically, I've got that. I leave a week from today, actually. That's my first country festival. It's in Ohio, and hooked up with the promoter. And what they do is this guy is the promoter. He has, I guess it's a license deal with the radio stations to actually put the shows together. So the 3 guitars you see there are basically 3 of 4 that I've painted with that style. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a raffle that you can actually buy raffle tickets and win one of those. We're going to raffle off one a night, and it's 2 a night. So there's 2 guitars a night. I've got, I think it's two tellies, a Strat, and an acoustic that are going out.
Yeah, 2 tellies. And I don't see the Strat in this picture, but I imagine it looks similar to these 3 guitars, and the acoustic is the center of the image. And being US American Made Guitars .com, that's really appealing to someone like me. I'm was in the military, and so I'm very patriotic. And when I see these designs, the way you did them, it just makes me proud to see what that is. I mean, it's just what that represents. That's you put your heart and soul in this stuff, don't you?
I do. I mean, basically each one of these is unique, even though you're looking at the picture and they all look identical, but they're not. They're all hand painted. I don't use any stickers, any decals, anything like that. So, I'd like to say is, even if I tried, there's no way I could actually get an exact duplicate. There's going to be something different about it. So they're all one of one. Like you just said, obviously the patriotic thing is obviously, something close to me. I know a lot of people, who have, relatives, friends, and families who have served in the military. Actually, one of the guitars I just finished, it's on my Instagram. I think it might be on Facebook too. I just did for the USO, which is also going to be at the Country Jam Festival as well. So I did that guitar for the charity. For the USO organization. They're going to auction it off for charity, with all the money going towards the local Ohio USO chapter. So a very cool organization.
Very cool organization. And speaking of guitars, I've started the first guitar off here with a sexy one, and the reason I did that is because for whatever reason I noticed that your guitars they attract the ladies.
And that's not a bad thing.
I don't think that's a bad thing. And so the guitar I'm looking at right now is a beautiful woman, and she's standing next to this gigantic snake.
Okay.
And
right.
I just have to ask, what has she got her hand on? What is that?
I believe it is a snake. If that's what the picture you're referring
That's
to.
kind of what it looks like, a snake.
Yep.
So
we get all kinds of interesting people that approach us. We've had snakes. We've had pet rats. We've had I want to say parakeets. All kinds of interesting things that people bring to festivals that they want to share with us.
that's amazing, though. I mean, that's a great. I mean, I just want to point out a few things about this first guitar here. I mean, the beautiful woman set aside, but she's proportioned perfectly. The snake is very menacing. I mean, it actually is scary to look at. It has a look of danger about it, so it does have a character to it. And so I see the illustrator experience really coming through in the first, 2 parts of the image that pop out, and then I notice the skull right where the pickups go, and there's these roots coming off the bottom of the skull, and then above all this imagery is the trees, and the way you did that gradient from where it looks like a sun or a moon or whatever, it into the back of the guitar is just expertly done, man. I mean, there's a lot going on with this image that really, really makes it pop.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Whatever it into the back of the guitar is just expertly done, man. I mean, there's a lot going on with this image that really, really makes it pop. Do you hear that?
Appreciate that.
Yeah. I don't know what that is.
Oh, we got an echo there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
all right.
okay.
Yep.
All right, that was weird. Okay, sorry about that, everybody. I'm going to try to go back to what I was doing here. I had a little echo thing going. So anyway, we're looking at a guitar with a beautiful woman and a snake in it, and I was just talking about the different fine points of the painting. Because this is a work of art. It really is. And I'm going to transition now into another image. And I knew the illustrator experience played a big part in your art. And so the second guitar I want to talk about is this amazing star guitar shape Spider-Man.
Spider-Man, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the illustrator art experience, man, I mean, this looks exactly like you would want it to look in like any comic book or movie or art piece. I mean, you captured Spider-Man perfectly.
Oh, thanks. I mean, it's interesting. Is a lot of people they'll come with things like this and they'll say, hey, can you replicate this, or would it be a real pain to do something like this? I mean, for me personally, I don't mind that at all. Like if you've got an idea and you're like, hey, I want Spider-Man, can you make him look like this, like that? To me, that's even easier because it's the character exists already. I don't have to create it. Like the guitar you referenced prior with the woman with the snake. Obviously, that's my design. That was a specific design for a client, and they just let me go to town with it. But it takes a while to come up with that composition. What is the girl going to look like? What is the snake going to look like? If you turn around and you say, hey, man, I want Spider-Man, scaling a building, that's easy because I already know what Spider-Man looks like. I don't have to create that character,
Right. So this was easy work for you, and it's really beautiful. I mean, what you also captured here is the color. Mm-hmm. That's very important. I mean, the color of the suit and everything around it. I mean, but especially the color of Spider-Man's suit. It is exactly how you would want to see Spider-Man, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm a huge Spider-Man fan anyway, so I had to talk about that guitar.
I got you. All good.
Great guitar. Now I knew that you did other things other than stuff that looks like the first two guitars. And that's these abstract design paintings that you do. They're incredibly intricate.
Thank you.
This one that I'm looking at right now is like a Les Paul, and it's just, I mean, what's the inspiration? What did a customer ask you to do this, or is this something that you came up with just right out of your mind?
You're looking at the black and white Les Paul, like the random pattern?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah, well, so the funny thing about that guitar, that started off as just it was a portfolio piece for me, just to showcase stuff. So it is a Les Paul, it's a Les Paul Studio. I call that guitar a beautiful mind because there is no rhyme or reason to it. I just picked up a black marker and that's what you got. So whatever mood I was in, that was the shape I was going with. And then I airbrush a little bit of a burst around it, but it's just random pattern. There's no story to be had. It was just whatever the pen wanted to do. That's what came out. So it's kind of cool. I mean, I get a lot of compliments on it, and it's a real popular design. One of my designs,
And it well should be, because it's absolutely beautiful, every piece of it. I mean, what I look for when I see abstract design art like this, is there anything that sticks out? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And nothing sticks out. It's just I think that it's just clean. The whole thing pops as one piece, and it's a million little pieces though.
Yep.
But it has that effect. It's amazing.
It's funny too, because I mean, obviously, being around art for so long, like you just said, I love to look at things. I mean, even more to the like abstract art, even because it's not so specific. So you've got to wonder what the artist was thinking or where he was mentally when that came out. What was the inspiration, like you said, behind it? And is for my own work, a lot of times, obviously, I'd like to listen to music when I paint. And I guess you could say that, if I went back and I looked at, at the soundtracks, that I was actually listening to at the time I created it, is there inspiration from the music, which is very cool. And I've actually, consciously did that, on a couple of designs and stuff that I did. I did a Wolfgang, an EVH Wolfgang, that actually I just recently sold to a customer here in Brooklyn, and it's purple. It's got some gold in it, and again, it's a pattern. It's not so random, but it's a pattern. And at the time, I've obviously Wolfgang, you got to listen to Van Halen, so I listened. Basically, I put a soundtrack together, and the tune that really came to mind is Me Wise Magic. So I named the guitar Me Wise Magic, and I guess if you turned around and looked at it, that's my linear version of Van Halen's Me Wise Magic.
I love that song. I've been playing the daylights out of it this week.
I play that thing on a continuous loop.
I feel you, man. I feel you on that. And now, that's exciting to know that story behind that. And, I've seen a lot of skull guitars that you've done, and skulls are not as easy to do as, to make them look right, it's just not, an amateur skull, you can tell. Your skulls are unreal. They're just off the chart cool, man.
Well, thank you. I've had a couple people call me the skull guy, and ironically enough, it's every once in a while when I'll do a guitar with no skull on it, and I'll post a picture, people actually comment, "Dude, where's the skull?" So it's I have a lot of fun with it. The thing that I really like about skulls, obviously, my genre, my style lends itself towards more of a heavy metal, a heavier, deeper sound. And a deeper look, the skulls kind of translate to that. But the really cool thing about skulls is, like a fingerprint, no two are identical. So even if you turned around and said, okay, well, geez, that guitar looks like a design you did on another one. Again, no two skulls are identical. So even the fact that an artist created them, there's still something unique about each and every one of them. And I really, really enjoy drawing them.
Yeah, each one is an individual guitar too. These are all one-offs. You're not mass producing like a single guitar.
Nope, not at all.
Right.
Yep.
So I'm transitioning now from those beautiful skulls to, well, it's you hanging out with some young lady, and she's got a wicked V Dean guitar.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What was that show? What were you at a festival or something? What was that about?
Yep, exactly. So again, like I said earlier, I've been coined, the official guitar of a bunch of these festivals. This one circuit that we go around with, and it's so cool. I meet such interesting and awesome people. And again, what we do is every day. Usually it's a 2 or 3 day festival, and I'll paint, between 4 and 6 guitars for that festival, branded the festival, and we raffle them off at the end of the day. And she was one of the winners. And to have somebody go, obviously you've probably been to music festivals as most people probably have at one point in time. You can buy a concert shirt, you can buy a poster, you can buy whatever. But I think what we're doing is we're creating kind of like the ultimate festival souvenir. And to see somebody be able to actually turn around and say, wait a minute, I won that? And it's like, well, yeah, you bought a raffle ticket. Didn't you think you're going to win it? And it's like, I never thought I'd actually win the thing. So and ironically enough, a lot of these people don't play. They entered this to be able to have that piece of art for their wall and remember that day. The coolest thing I think that happened out of doing this was just about a year ago I referenced before at the Aftershock Festival in Sacramento. I was painting a guitar there. I usually paint one on site, and I'll have the rest of them already done behind me. So painting a guitar on site, and we were going to auction it off for a charity called Take Me Home Animal Rescue, which is they're part of the festival circuit with me. I've done multiple guitars for them. It's a great group. So I was painting the guitar there, and some guy came up and he said to me, "Hey, what is that? What are you doing with that?" I said to him, "Well, tomorrow we're going to have an auction, at the Take Me Home Rescue booth. This is going to be one of the guitars that they auction." So the guy's like, "Oh man," he says, "I'd really like to buy it." He says, "My fiance and I just got engaged here today at the festival, and that'd be the ultimate thing to remember our anniversary by." So I was like, "You're kidding me." And at the time, the promoter was sitting there with me. So the guy actually made a ridiculously high monetary offer for this guitar, which wasn't even finished painted yet. And we were like, man, absolutely. So he bought the guitar. It was an awesome donation to the pet rescue. And, I personalized it for him, and I'm sure it's hanging on his wall. And every year he's going to go back and he's going to remember that day with that. So it's very cool,
I do know, man. That's why I put that picture in there. I could tell. I knew it was something. I didn't know that she won the guitar.
Yeah, she won it. Yep.
That's no wonder she's smiling so big. I'd be smiling ear to ear too with that thing.
Yeah, it's so cool, and and we've gotten such a great response. I mean, a lot of the big brands, they get behind it. I literally just took delivery today of 7 brand new PRSs. That they're going to support the next one we do because they want to be involved with it. I've done Dean, I've done ESP, we've done Gibson, I've done Jackson's. They're all the brands are so cool to get behind it, and a lot of these kids, they come to these festivals, and they might not be able to, if they're not at that stage in their their guitar playing career, so to speak, they're not looking to get a PRS because they're not going to drop that kind of money on it. It's not a beginner guitar by any stretch. So to see a kid walk away with a custom painted PRS, I mean, that kid's happier than a clam. I mean, he's loving life.
Oh, absolutely, man. I mean, that's the ultimate, like you said, it's the ultimate, one person referred to it as the ultimate thing to remember their anniversary by.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
So if you have a kid that ends up with one of these, I mean, that's an incredible thing to have. These are works of art. They're one off. It's not like, you just go buy it off the rack and you get what you get. And I like what you say on, your website. Let's see, you said, I've always loved the different designs of custom guitars. You see a lot of musicians with really unique styles and personal identities, but most of their instruments don't reflect that. They could be right off the rack.
Yeah.
And
it's true. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, you could probably count on one hand how many iconic guitars you've seen that go with the player. I mean, obviously, for me, the first one that comes to mind is Eddie Van Halen.
Absolutely.
You got Eddie Van Halen. You've got Eric Clapton's Fool. Mustaine has his signature guitars out now. But, I mean, there's you could even say Stevie Ray Vaughan's Strat. But, I mean, there was nothing other than being, distressed, so to speak, about that. There's just very few actual guitars. Gary Holt has got that ridiculously cool guitar, that was made out of his blood, which is different. But most of the players, I mean, and again, I'm a big fan of guitar. Slash. I mean, Slash is probably one of the best guitar players on the planet. And I mean, not to knock anything, but he just plays a gold top Les Paul, which is a ridiculously cool instrument. But does it reflect his style? I don't know. I mean, I don't know the guy personally. I mean, I'm more of a I want that one-off. I want to basically say, my personal guitar is going to be mine. No one else has one that looks just like it. And that's kind of what I try to do, for personal clients is, what kind of sound are you into? The guitar you referenced before with the snake and the girl on it, that was for a guy named Bryce Van Houston, who played in a band Spellcaster out of Portland. And we reached out to him and said, hey, you want to do something together? And I spent a couple of weeks listening to his music. I've seen him play live. And I mean, the kid is a phenomenal guitar player. So knowing how he played and how aggressive he is and how technically, awesome this kid's playing is, I'm like, I've got to create an instrument that when that guy walks up on stage, people go, Jesus Christ, look at how cool that looks and look at how he plays. They'll never forget that combination as far as I'm concerned.
I agree with you. And in the entertainment business, imagery is really important. Image is something that a lot of people work on. And, I mean, it's not, I'm not saying you can't be like Metallica and do what Metallica does and look the way Metallica looks, but even Metallica has a certain kind of imagery to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we'll go back to, that's advertising 101. At some point in time, I mean, let's be real. I'm sure there's a lot of kids out there who probably play guitar that are phenomenal, but they're not Metallica. They're not up on stage. So at some point, what separates, what gave Metallica their first break? I mean, obviously you could argue the fact that it's musicianship, obviously the composition of the songs, but there also is an image. Motley Crue. I mean, it's another band. They had an image, and I mean, when Crue came on the stage, you knew it was Motley Crue coming. I mean, there was that whole persona around them, so I mean, image is huge. And if I can do something, obviously the instruments in these guys' hands, that's front and center. If I can create something that helps you remember that guy or that image or that sound, then it's a plus. It's an absolute plus for that performer.
I agree, and guitar players like Kirk Hammett, for example, he's played a million guitars, but the only ones that stick out in my mind are the ones that have graphics on them, like
the Nosferatu. Yeah, those are exactly right. He's a big fan. I mean, even Phil Collins from Def Leppard. He's got a couple of the signature models too, and even like in the stores, when you walk into a music store, you see those on the wall, you're immediately drawn to them. And I'm not taking anything away from Tobacco Burst or whatever other a Starburst or whatever the color combinations are. But again, they're a mass produced instrument, and it's a wonderful instrument. But as far as the actual color and stuff like that, it's one of many. I'd rather be one of one.
I agree with you, and I really like that you are getting some recognition for what you're doing and why you're doing it here from companies like Dean, for example. I really admire Dean, USA Custom Shop. I mean, that's an incredible outfit, and when you see these guitars from Dean painted like this, it's incredible. I mean, Dimebag Darrell, his guitar, I remember it in my brain, no problem, because of the lightning bolts and, the different, guitars that he had. Zakk Wylde, for example, sticks out in my mind as being original because his designs on his guitar were original to him because he wanted something to make him original. He said in an interview that he wanted to be original, but he didn't want to copy Randy Rhoads, polka dot and something like. He wanted to come up with his own thing.
Yep. And I mean, think about it. Those are some big shoes to fill there. So I mean, kudos to Zakk for being able to pull it off. I mean, and pull it off extremely well. But you mentioned Dean. We got involved with Dean. I want to say 2 or 3 months ago was the first time. I mean, they've turned out to be it's a dream come true partner. I mean, the organization is a great organization. The brand is a great brand. You've got Dave Mustaine, you got Dimebag, who have been part of that organization, and the guitars is from an art standpoint. I mean, those things are works of art before I even touch them. I mean, just the shapes are crazy. It's you hang that thing on the wall, you're like, what is that? So I mean, those were awesome to paint, and when we saw those at the festivals, and people were just climbing over themselves to get a hold of one of those things. So I mean, Dean has been an awesome partner. I can't say enough about them.
Oh, I imagine so, and that's all I've ever heard about Dean is nothing but positivity. I've heard criticisms of different companies and some unfair criticisms too, but I've heard a lot of criticisms of other companies, but I just never hear Dean thrown in the mix.
No, it's a great organization. I mean, I'm sure in this day and age, everybody pisses somebody off at some point in time. Right? But,
yeah.
That to me, that just goes back to like personal style. I mean, if you don't like the way something sounds, you change the pickups, find a different wood body. I mean, whatever suits you. Might not the neck, the radius. I mean, that's just personal preference. You can't dump on the brand, because you don't care for stuff like that. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, they're top-notch instruments, and most of the manufacturers out there now, everybody's got their entry-level line, and again, that serves a purpose for somebody just starting to play. I mean, if my son wanted to play guitar tomorrow, I wouldn't buy him a $2,000 guitar, so I'd want to get, a name brand, but I'd want to get an entry level. But for the most part, most of the brands I've worked with, I mean, they're finer instruments. I mean, these things are no joke. It's almost like at some point in time you feel bad taking it apart and painting it.
Yeah, no kidding. Huh? That's awesome. And
I sent me a Jackson custom shop one time. It came straight from Jackson. He never even touched it. He had it delivered straight to me, and he's like, "Now tear it apart and paint it." I'm like, I think a little bit of me cried that night when I had to do that. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Oh, I believe you. I love Jackson. I've got a Jackson tattoo on my arm. That's how much I love Jackson guitars. Yep. So, transitioning here a little bit into something different than guitars, though. There's a lady on the right-hand side here that has a really special headset around her neck. Tell me about your headsets.
Yeah, so ironically enough, I was, again, probably just about a year ago, I was doing some guitars for the Winter NAMM show with Zemitis Guitars, another very cool brand that I'm thrilled to work with. And, they make some really unique stuff. So posting pictures as I go, of progress on the guitars, and I get a call from Floyd Rose Audio. Obviously Floyd Rose, Tremolo, they have an audio division. And they're basically, last year they were just launching these headphones, and they were going to premiere them at Winter NAMM. And the CEO said to me, "Hey, I think it'd be awesome. Do you think you could paint these headphones?" So I was like, "Well, that's interesting. Can you send me a pair and I'll take a look at them?" So he sends a pair up to me, and I take them apart, and lo and behold, the cones on the headphone are wood. So I said, "Well, this is ridiculous. It's the same process." So I sanded them down, I primed them, and I painted them just the way I would paint a guitar, and then clear coat it. So I actually started doing the headphones for those guys, custom painted. He lets me design what I want on them. A couple times that we've had some requests from clients. But it's cool because I've also actually taken some of the designs that I made on the guitars and put it on the headphones. So to hang them side by side is pretty cool. But it's been going really well too. I mean, who'd have thought that there'd be a market for custom painted headphones, but people love them.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the one that the lady's wearing in there is stunning. So transitioning here, talking about ladies, again, I said in the beginning of the interview, your guitars seem to attract ladies.
Yeah, and men. We get some men in there too.
We're at hashtag Rockfest photograph here is what we're looking at.
Yep.
And these are two guitars, and they're Jackson guitars. That's why I want to put them in here. And look at the skulls on that. I mean, that's just incredible. Those guitars, man, that's slamming. I love Jackson guitars, and I can tell these are great. They got the number of frets I like. I mean, look at the trims on them. I mean, that's a tight pair of guitars right there, man. What's the story behind those?
So that was Rockfest in Wisconsin, Cadott, Wisconsin, and was it? I think about a month and a half ago. We got invited up to do some guitars for that, and it was just a great group of people to work with. They said, "Hey, we would love to have something like this," and I'm like, let me design something up, and we put that together, and we went up there and raffled them off at the end of the night. And we've had some of the bands came out and they signed some of them, which was very cool. One of the guitars actually was raffled off. A woman won it, and she said, she goes, "Oh my God, I'm going to have to give this to my son because he couldn't come to the festival with us and he wanted to be here, but he had school or something. He couldn't make it." She said, "So I'm going to tell him I won this for him and he's just learning how to play guitar." So it was very cool. She sent me pictures of him holding the guitar and everything. But yeah, they went up really well. That was a real big hit in Cadott. They loved them up there.
Awesome. Rockfest and Cadott, man. You guys knocked it out the ballpark with RONZWORLD. And next, we're transitioning into a couple of more guitars. And I love this because I really like, I've got a book on King Tut. I'm really into Egyptian history. I just find it fascinating, And so when I seen this Egyptian queen, sort of a modernized look, but and with a black cat, which I happen to have a black Manx. Mm-hmm. So I just love this imagery of the Lady Pharaoh.
Yep, that is a Zemitis. We just talked about that a few minutes ago. That guitar was done for Winter NAMM. Zemitis commissioned me to paint 6 guitars, again giving me complete carte blanche, of whatever I wanted to do with them. And if you're familiar with the Zemitis brand, their instruments are absolutely stunning. They've got these metal plate faces that are all etched with these real intricate designs. So a little intimidating, to be an artist. You're to go up against a room full of these works of art, and obviously their tagline is art with strings. So it had to be something pretty impressive. So what I did was I basically tried to get a couple of ideas that had a little bit of like some sort of history to them. One, I did a samurai, samurai theme, which went over very well. I believe they sold that one. And then as I was doing the samurai, I'm like, well, maybe we keep going with this theme of like some kind of historical something. And I've always been really, really intrigued with, Aztec art and Egyptian art, and that kind of thing. So I'm like, how cool would it be, to do something with a pharaoh on it? At the time, one of the girl working with me, she was like, why don't you try something, with the Egyptian queen and, with the symbolism and stuff like that. And I'm like, that's an awesome idea. So sat down with a pencil, started drawing it up, and there you have it, and that guitar sold at Winter NAMM. So that's went to a private collector.
Very nice. I imagine it did sell. I would imagine that was an easy one.
Yeah, it's fun when you're able to do things. I mean, again, that you figure it was commissioned by a manufacturer, but it wasn't like anybody telling me what to do. So it's really rewarding knowing that, again, that came out of my head, and here it is on the guitar, and somebody was willing to pay a considerable amount of money for it. If you think about it, a lot of times, it always boggles the mind. It's like if I'm going to pay a couple $1,000s, quite frankly, for a custom guitar, you'd think you'd want that guitar to be exactly what you want, because you have that ability to say, hey, Ron, I'm thinking I want this, I want that, I want this, and it's yours. Whereas somebody's going to walk in and just see something that I've created and be like, that's it, that's the one. For me, an artist, that's a very cool feeling. That's a really rewarding feeling right there.
Very much so, I imagine. I mean, it's a great guitar. And again, I had to throw another guitar in here that had the skull on it because it reminded me of a military symbol type of I don't know what that, I can't remember what it is, but it looks like Green Beret.
Green Beret, yep.
Yeah.
That's exactly called, yep.
Green Beret, yeah, and that's awesome, man. I mean, I'm former military, so I've seen that, and so I put these two images together, because I really was just picking images from your Facebook page. So I encourage people to visit Ron's Facebook page, Ron's World. It's Ron's World with ITS at the front, and it's RONZWORLD. And you can see these photographs; they're amazing. And here, I'm a huge fan of the Beatles. Paul McCartney everyone has their favorite. Paul McCartney is my favorite.
Yep.
So I had to throw up the Beatles. What it looks, I don't. What brand is that?
That's a Hofner bass. That's his model Hofner.
Amazing, man. I mean, this is an amazing yellow submarine. On the front, love, 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 yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's got all the style that you would expect, Yellow Submarine type look to it on the front. And I mean, everyone knows that the Beatles were pretty cutting edge with their animations whenever they came out with this stuff way, way back.
Yeah, it's I mean that style art it's so cool. And I mean, obviously I can't take credit for the art. It's it was established, more to the fact I just made the composition and replicated it. But, that was a client down in Florida. He owned a music store. And at the time, I was basically just starting out painting guitars. And, he gave me a lot of pointers on some stuff. And he said to me, he goes, hey, I'm a massive Beatle fan. He says, I'd love to have you do, a Beatles bass, just go to town with it and that style art. And I'm like, absolutely, dude. So, I mean, that was one of the few guitars that I've ever done where the entire guitar is painted, front, back, sides, neck, headstock. The whole thing has graphics all over it. And it came out pretty cool. I was really happy with the way it came out. He has it, obviously. It's his personal thing. But we've gotten some pretty cool recognition, from Hofner and from some of the Beatles fan clubs on it. It's just cool to see people, when they can get something they can latch onto, they engage with it. And that's the beauty of social media. So it was fun, really, really fun to do that guitar. I'm a Beatles fan, so it obviously, hits a nerve with me.
Oh yeah, man, you knocked it out of the ballpark, dude. I love it.
Thank you.
So anyway, everybody, feast your eyes on that for a second. I mean, let's look at we got Paul McCartney, we've got George Harrison, Ringo Starr, and John Lennon right here on this Hofner bass. I mean, the actual brand bass that Paul McCartney is famous for playing, and you can actually see that Hofner bass in Paul McCartney's hands on the back of the guitar with on the left image there. It's just amazing. So transitioning to the next guitar, again, that Illustrator stuff comes through, and I'm a huge fan of Batman and Spider-Man and all the Super Friends, and here we have what, Joker?
The Joker, yes, the Joker. Yep.
Yep. Ha ha ha. And why so serious? I mean, it's a very menacing. It's a very menacing. Your font that you used, and I mean, just this whole thing. I don't. I don't know how you pull this stuff off so well, dude. But I mean, that is just immaculate.
Thank you. Yeah, that's again. Being being an artist. I'm a huge fan of pretty much most art. So The Dark Knight and those those like, what do they call those? The graphic novel, those kind of books and those old comics and stuff. I love that style art, and it's I actually struggle doing with it because I don't think I do it as well as I know some people do it. It's really not my thing. So to be able to pull it off takes a little bit out of me, but I just love the look of it. And it's funny, I had the Joker, we call that one Why So Serious, and I also I did on a Schecter, that's on a Jackson actually, the Joker. On a Schecter, I did the Harley Quinn for Daddy's Little Monster. So for a while there, we would bring them around together. And I got to tell you, if I had a dime for every person that took a picture with those guitars, I'd be a millionaire by now because people love that Joker. That's by far probably my most popular.
Oh, I imagine so. Monica Jesdal in the chat room says, I love the Joker. And she says, I want that guitar.
Well, Monica, it's actually, I still have that guitar actually. So if you want it, DM me or get a hold of me. It's for sale.
Yeah, she fell in love with that immediately, and I just want to thank Monica for joining the chat room. And we've got Robert Gorham as well. I know Robert; he's a good friend. He's, Robert's a painter, and so he's into painting. And I told him that I was going to interview a painter tonight. And what's funny is he also plays guitar.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he's really, really good at guitar, and he describes himself as an old hippie. So that's Robert, and I'm sure Robert's enjoying these paintings and illustrations because in his home he has many paintings, originals, and some valuable ones, and he's very proud of that kind of stuff. So he loves painting. I'm sure he's just feasting as a guitar player. He's a good guitar player too, and singer. So it's really a treat for him, I'm sure, to see these guitars. You guys think that Joker's cool? I know you do. But check out the Incredible Hulk.
Yep, the Hulk.
This is what happens when you're in Ron's world.
Yeah, exactly. You get a little bit enraged, you turn green.
Your axe is beefed up, man.
Yeah, the Hulk was the Hulk went to a buddy of mine actually bought the Hulk. It hangs in his office. I believe still hangs in his office. But another Jackson. The bodies are great to work with, and that character is just I could sit there and watch the the Avenger movies and just watch the Hulk destroy shit all day long. I think it's just I get immense pleasure out of watching that character. So to be able to put it on a guitar, and I mean it just fits so good on that body. So the composition worked really well. It made it wouldn't have worked on a Les Paul shape for whatever reason. It's just the way the horns on the Jackson works. It worked really well, and I was really happy the way that one came out as well.
Yeah, and the icing on the cake is that Incredible Hulk strap.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Ironic enough, I've got a Spider-Man strap too for the Spider-Man guitar.
Awesome. The combination there is that's the cherry on top.
Yep.
And I gotta mention what's hiding behind the Hulk. It looks like Eddie Van Halen's.
Yeah,
type of strap.
I had to. That was just my. I didn't paint that. I just had to buy that. That was.
You did.
Was just one of my gifts to myself. I just figured when those production line came out, I was like, you know what? I wasn't going to invest in the actual Frankenstein replica, which obviously that would have been just the icing on the cake, that thing. but I had to invest in the regular. I've since sold it, but yeah, I had to invest in an Eddie guitar. I had to have it.
Oh yeah, I did too. I bought an Eddie guitar exactly like yours as soon as it came out.
Yep, had to have it. Yep.
Yeah, and I'm transitioning into another couple of guitars here. And the reason I like these is the one on the right looks to be steampunk.
Yes. Yep.
Yes,
that was for a client against the Winter NAMM show, steampunk guitar. It's like, and the irony with that thing too is he actually requested a steampunk style, and then let me run with it, and I had no idea what steampunk was at the time, so I had to do a little research on that thing. But that was a lot of fun too. It's again, when from an artistic standpoint, it's cool with all the different, let's call it substrates and things. Let's see if we can make these bolts look like bolts. Let's see if we can make this look like rusted copper or whatever it is. So things like that they're challenging, but they're just so much fun, because once you figure out the obstacle, and I mean, let's call it what it is. I mean, basically, I'm cheating. I'm creating stuff that isn't. It's not real. It's not a real bolt. You know what I mean? It's just. It's what do you put together, to make it look like that? Is it a drop of black paint with a piece of this with a smear of that? So it is. It's just. It's. There's no rhyme or reason to it, and I bet you there's 15 different artists you could interview that are going to do it 15 different ways, and it all works. So that's what kind of makes those things cool, where it's, if you start looking at the actual art itself, you can see where there's a smudge and, where there's a scratch, and that actually adds to that character of it. So the steampunk guitar was very cool because it allowed me to explore a lot of different, just random techniques that I had no idea if it would work or not.
Yeah, well, it works. I mean, it has depth to it, and
It came out cool.
Yeah, the lighting and the shading. I mean, there's a lot going on with this image. I mean, it's on so many levels. And then you've got next to it here again that Illustrator. Man, I mean, boy, it's your style is the influence of it. It's just you could do anything. I mean, anything, and that's what's just amazing about it. But explain what that guitar is there. Was it say Scott's Pilgrim of the World?
Oh yeah. What the hell? It's a movie. A client of mine contacted me from Carolina, and it's Scott Pilgrim, I think is the name of the movie. And It's one of those old classic cult movies, from like the 90s. And he basically he said he sent me up the DVD. I had never seen the movie before, and I'm a massive fan of this. Can you create something that represents the characters? And so I had to watch the movie and then do a little research on it, because it's obviously, it's just like the Beatles. If you're a fan of the Beatles and you do something wrong, you're going to be able to call it out. So I wanted to make sure this is pretty authentic to the Scott Pilgrim fans of the world. And, so I drew it up and I sent him some pictures back and forth, and I let him see videos of me making it. And, afterwards he told me, he goes, dude, you absolutely nailed my exact vision of Scott Pilgrim. I'm like, wow, because I had no idea,
Wow, if he said you exact nailed it, that's great.
I loved it. He loved it.
Yeah, he had to have loved it. I imagine if because I'm a fan of certain things too, like Walking Dead. I could see a Walking Dead imagery on one of your guitars, and it
Absolutely.
would just be sick,
Yeah, again, it's anything that has that just distinctive, almost like visual personality. It lends itself, again, I think, an instrument and art, they were kind of just meant to go together,
They really are, art and painting and guitars is the talent involved with the whole thing, and the type of people that play guitar they're talented all on their own.
That's exactly right. I mean, they're artists in themselves. It was ironic. At the NAMM show, I ran into DJ Ashba, from 6 a.m. And we actually sat and got to talking about art, because he is a graphic designer by trade, so he's got a whole big thing in Vegas there, a line of clothing and everything like that, and I actually said to him, I'm like, curious, I've seen some of your other guitars, I says, and your style and, the tattoos and the whole look of you, DJ, and then you come out with the Schecter guitar is kind of tame. What was the reasoning behind that? Artist to artist, I would love to know what you were thinking. And his comment to me was basically, my first signature guitar, you know, Schecter wanted to kind of play it a little safe and have something that was basically, you know, cross-platform, so to speak, where a lot of people could get behind it. It wasn't too intimidating with this. It wasn't too intimidating with that. You know, and I you can respect that, again, from a brand standpoint. You know, it still has a little bit of character from him. It's got some character from the brand, you know, but it's uniquely him, you know?
It fits that person perfect. And
Absolutely.
you know, we got a question from Monica in the chat room. She says, an outer space or constellation themed guitar would be so cool. I wonder if he's done anything like that.
I have. There was a client of mine out of Denver, probably just over the winter. This is actually that Jackson Custom Shop I was telling you about. He sent me, and on the front, there's pictures of it, I believe, on my Instagram. It's on the front of the guitar is a Black Panther. It looks like it's ripping through the surface of the guitar. The guitar is blue, you know, and the Black Panther is busting through an orange background. On the back of that guitar, it was interesting that this gentleman was very specific. The Black Panther was his spirit animal. And on the back of the guitar, he wanted a silhouette of a guy, you know, like the classic, you know, rock star pose where he's leaning back and the guitar is pushed up in the air in front of him. He wanted a silhouette of that with a beam of light coming off it that illuminated the earth with the moon behind it, and it was in complete like blue and red outer space nebula. So it was, and he sent me pictures, and he was very specific about what he wanted on it. But it's the whole back of the guitar, and the blue and the stars and the constellation goes all the way up the neck and the headstock as well. So yeah, I've done one, and those are a lot of fun too. Again, it's almost like you can't make it wrong. It's outer space. There's no, you know, there's no hard line there. You know, so you can get to play with the colors and everything. It's great subject matter.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it sounds like, you know, outer space is, you know, I mean, that sounds so cool to do. And when you know, sometimes, you know, when I feel like I'm in outer space, I do things like go to Ron's World on Twitter or Ron's World on Facebook, you know, and so, yeah, that's out of this world. You know, this art is really, really incredible, man. And transitioning here, this is Ron Williams himself. He's holding a couple of guitars, and behind him is nothing but Marshalls.
Nothing but Marshalls, yeah. That was based, again. You're pulling a lot from the NAMM show. That was like one of those things where it's like that was my you know, fan geek moment. I'm like, you don't usually get to stand in front of a wall of Marshalls, so I had to get my own little picture in front of that one.
That is just incredibly cool, man. I mean, what a great guest you've been. I want to thank you for being on the U.S. American Made Guitar Show, Ron.
Oh, man, thanks for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
Right, and you know, if you want to get a hold of Ron, folks, I've been saying throughout the interview, he's very active socially with his media. His Twitter account, again, is Ron's World, RONZWORLD, and his Facebook is It's Ron's World, again with that Z in there, and ITS at the beginning. So go and friend him on Facebook and follow him on Twitter, and you'll get to see what it is I'm so excited about as he continues to perform his art, because I really doubt he's going to give this up anytime soon, right?
No, I'm not giving up anytime soon. And, you know, I might want to add also, anybody that has any questions about, you know, if they're ever looking to how to paint a guitar or what kind of techniques or what kind of, you know, markers or paints I use, please, you know, no secrets here. I'd love to talk to people and other artists who are trying to do it themselves. So please reach out. I have no problem answering those questions.
There you have it. Reach out. He has no problem answering questions for you. So, and I know there's an artist, Robert Gorham, watching, and Robert's an artist. He's a great artist, and I've seen his work. And you know, I don't know exactly how someone could look at his work. Maybe I should interview him one of these days, on just for fun, do something different than guitars, you know, and ask him what it is that, you know, he loves about guitars, because he plays guitar. You know, get an artist point of view. You know, it's fun getting a painter artist point of view. So I'd like to talk to someone else that paints.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. And you use airbrush guns, don't you?
Airbrush, yeah, I use anything I get my filthy little hands on. I use airbrush, I use acrylics, paint pens, Sharpies, you know, paintbrush, whatever I can get my hands on, whatever works, you know.
And if somebody did want to get a hold of you, Ron, what's the best way for them? I mean, you've got different social medias and stuff, Instagram as well. I mean, which social media do you gravitate toward?
Usually mostly towards Instagram. I mean, you know, my website has you know, like the contact info, and I mean, that goes straight to my mobile device. So, I mean, I can usually answer those questions pretty quick, you know. But Instagram, I mean, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, I'm pretty all over those things. So, any way they can get a hold of me, I can answer pretty quickly.
All right. Well, this is Gary Housley with USAmericanMadeGuitars.com, and I've been speaking with Ron Williams of Ron's World out of New York. Thank you for joining us for the show, and until next time, keep it rocking.
Video production for the U.S. American Made Guitar Show by Gary Housley. USAmericanMadeGuitars.com. Audio production by Wilgard Productions. Visit WilgardProductions.com for all your audio production needs.